We have a special guest right now to start off hour two, and that is someone that's been at Nebraska before, now is the new offensive coordinator at Nevada, and that is Matt Lubick. Matt, good morning. Thanks for joining us. First of all, what has this process been like, and congratulations on the new gig at Nevada.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, grateful to be here.
I could imagine.
Yeah, no, it's this last year has had its share of ups and downs, but I'm really grateful how things are turning out. And I just recently took the job at Nevada, where it's an opportunity to work with a bunch of friends that I've developed throughout the coaching career, which I'm excited about, and really to kind of have a new lease on life, through this whole process. That just trying to go one day at a time.
Matt, so obviously you and me have talked numerous times, but you're going through a time in your life, you're working out like crazy, and all of a sudden you just don't feel good, and you go to the doctor. Tell us what that was like.
Yeah, I mean, obviously no one expects to be diagnosed with a life-threatening disease, and I was training for a marathon, and I just didn't want to screw with my training. That's the whole reason I went into the doctor. I think if I was coaching, I don't think I would have went to the doctor, because I really wasn't that bad. But I went in just because I was feeling a little run down and had some things. And the original test they did on me, it was actually kind of a misdiagnosis, where they just said, well, this is probably a virus, because nothing showed as cancer. That was the first thing they checked, and they did some preliminary cancer tests, and nothing showed. So that was back in August. I did fall camp with Kansas, and then but what they said, I had a really low whites count and red count, and they said, well, it's probably a virus, and that'll eventually come back, so we'll let you go home. So I went home, and I was still able to do my Kansas job, where I helped them out with football contributions just through Zooms. And then, it was about 2 months. I felt great. I was running, I was doing things, but my blood wasn't getting back to normal. And so I went in for more of a diagnostic test. It's called a bone marrow biopsy, where they actually drill into your bone, and that's where they found the leukemia. And then everything kind of changed from that day.
Matt, you talked about with me that you had that the early diagnosis was really grim, and then that there was a couple doctors or a doctor that gave you somewhat of hope. Tell us about the hope.
Sure. Yeah. So my leukemia is called acute myeloid leukemia, and there's different degrees in that. What I've learned, I'm definitely not a cancer expert, but I've learned a lot more about cancer. So it's a blood cancer, and like a lot of organ cancers, there's different stages: stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. And my cancer, because it was acute and aggressive, and it had some abnormalities, was considered. They go like favorable, intermediate, and then adverse. Mine was in the adverse, and that kind of rocked me when I first found that out. And what I had some really good advice from the doctors is you can't read the statistics, because everyone's different. And like, for example, my disease was based on, the average age is 70 years old. A lot of people that have got cancer the second time or have comorbidities, and that wasn't me. And so, when I heard that was actually comforting, because I'm not going to be a statistic. That's not me. And, what I've learned, doctors are a lot like coaches. They have an expertise. They have to know, what to prescribe. They have to know the ins and outs, and they have tons of training. But the special ones can give you hope and can really help you believe in yourself and give you confidence. And so, when I was at Anschutz, the head of a trial I was part of to help cure this said, Matt, you're going to do well. And that's really all I had to hear. And when I knew that he believed in me, that changed my whole perspective. And it wasn't just him too. I was very fortunate to talk to other people that have been through this on the other end and done really well, that all gave me hope and lifted my spirits. And I'm a big believer. I mean, there's science and proof that your mental well-being and believe in yourself enhances your immune system and your recovery. And I was very fortunate to have people that believed in me and gave me hope and really built up my confidence going through this whole process.
This is an amazing story.
Yeah.
This is an amazing story. Matt Lubick joins us, former Nebraska offensive coordinator, current Nevada offensive coordinator. Now, when you got the diagnosis, did you immediately go into fighting posture, or did it knock you back a few days?
Well, the interesting thing, so because my blood wasn't getting better, I kind of knew something was wrong. And so, as a coach, you're always trying to prepare yourself for what can happen. When I was at Nebraska, you're always worried about, okay, what if we get 3rd and long? What if we need one more 2-point play? You're always trying to prepare for the worst outcome. I think that's just kind of a makeup. I think that helped me with this whole situation. So I was actually, before I was even officially diagnosed, I was calling people that I knew that have had leukemia and battled through it. So when I got the first call, I was disappointed, but I actually felt like, hey, I got this. And I had people that have been through it that gave me confidence. But what rattled me is, I had a game plan, and then how I was going to get through it based on other success. I go to the hospital and I figure out, hey, no, this is a little more difficult type of leukemia. And then that rattled me. But then I, just again, kind of what I was just talking about earlier, I had people say, hey, just there's more than just these statistics. There's more than that. And then really kind of diving in and figuring out, okay, I just have to change my game plan. I got thrown a curveball, and now I have, because the type of leukemia I had, you have to have a stem cell transplant, which is a whole nother thing, and increases the recovery length, and is kind of a traumatic thing to go through because I had an abnormal chromosome. So it was basically, I had a game plan, I got thrown a curveball, had to change it. And, and that's what you do as a coach too. I think that helped me, is like, things don't always go as planned. You got to adjust. It's not always easy, but once I, got my mindset and I got adjusted to it, and it really came down just focusing on the positive, because, you hear a lot of negative and you see statistics, but you also hear good things too, and just really be aware of the negative, because you don't want to be blind, but you also really want to focus on the positive. And I know, when I was in the hospital, 2 exercises really helped me. Every day I woke up and, said what I was grateful for, and just shifted my mindset. And I also wrote, anytime someone told me something positive, I wrote that down and re-looked at that every single day. And that really helped my mindset, especially when some of those hard times came with a transplant in the hospital. I was in there for 40 days. It helped me deal with all that.
Matt, Coach Bush again. Question, not a question, but just, we had talked about this, and obviously you've had high success at Oregon, Washington. We have a connection with Ole Miss because we both coached for Ed Ogeron, and you've had so many great things happen. And then obviously I feel unjustly let go here, as your team was averaging, it was 16th in the country in yards per play, but then it was a bitter time. How has this disease and this fight changed your outlook on everything with coaching and just in life in general?
Yeah, I mean, that's, no one wants cancer, but there are some really good things that came out of this, and things I'm grateful for. And, one of them is perspective. And I think, in coaching, there's a lot of ups and downs, and I'm very grateful for my time at Nebraska, and I enjoyed it. But yeah, we didn't win enough games, and at the end of the day, you get fired, and that there's a whole bunch of emotions. You put so much into it and things don't go out well, it's hard to just sometimes move on. And so all of a sudden you get life-threatening disease, everything changes, and things that used to bug you, whether it was something that happened in your past, or forgiveness, or something that I did, those don't matter anymore. I mean, you really get to think about living in the day and appreciating the day, and and then just, you don't take life for granted. And the things that became really important to me was faith, family, and relationships, and stuff I used to worry about and stressed about. And, whether it was, hey, how many kids we got to sign, or hey, how many first downs we're going to get at winning the football game. I mean, at the end of the day, and when you are, we're all going to die someday. And at the end of your life, no one's going to say, hey, hey, you guys had a chance to beat Michigan and you fumbled the snap, and no one's going to remember that. And then so it's like, we as coaches, we want to do so well, and you get caught up in performance, and it's good to want to do your best and strive to be your best, and it's a very competitive profession. But at the end of the day, when it's a life or death situation. That stuff doesn't really matter. What matters is you gave your best, and you basically, you try to do the best you can and move on and really fulfill, what we're here on life for. And I'm a big believer what we're here on life for is to, help other people, believe in God and, just be the best person you can possibly be. And so the cancer diagnosis and going through this process has really reshaped my values. And it's made me a better person. So I'm grateful for that.
Matt Lubick joins us. Matt, you're in a grinding profession there's a lot of hours. How much of a challenge is that for you right now? And how are you working through that part of it?
Sure. Well, this decision to take the Nevada coaching job was only because of the head coach was very sensitive to my situation. He's a friend and is working with me through this. And he understands that, part of my recovery, which is still, I'm still working remotely because I need to build up my immune system. Part of my recovery, is going to have to be patient and making sure I get enough rest and, and doing things when I can do things. And so I'm very grateful for that. That's, to me, it's unheard of, for a head coach to be that patient and that understanding of my health. So like right now, for example, I'm helping when I can help. When we started spring ball, I think it was 3 weeks ago, a big part of the offense was already in, and I wasn't able to really be involved because I was in the hospital. But now that I'm out of the hospital, I'm going through spring ball with those guys remotely and, trying to contribute and trying to help just improve the system. But yeah, for someone, it really takes a true friend to be patient through this process. And he's aware of that there could be curveballs and things could happen. And I'm very optimistic and I'm ahead of schedule. My doctors think I'm doing great, that I will be there in the fall, but things happen and you got to be able to adjust. So you got to be prepared for whatever can happen. So again, if it was, I don't think there's any other program in the country that would, let me do this with the type of situation that I've been through. So I'm grateful for that.
Sure, Matt Lubick. Bill mentioned this earlier, but I was reading the article by Bruce Feldman from The Athletic about your situation here, Matt. And in fact, you're a long distance runner, but the first day of chemotherapy, you walked a full marathon. Walk us through that and how that, that's an incredible story in itself, Matt.
Over 50,000 steps.
Ooh.
Yeah. So one thing I've been competitive to a fault, and like I was a thing like when I went into the hospital, I was going to I'm going to be, the healthiest patient they have in the hospital, healthiest sick patient they have in the hospital. I'm going to be the first guy to get out. And I asked all the nurses, I go, hey, what's the shortest hospital stay? And I was going to be that guy. Someone told me to rinse. There's this thing you got to do to prevent mouth sores. So rinse out your mouth 3 times. I'd rinse it out 10 times. So I kind of go to the extremes. And then, one thing I love to do is just movement. And I can't stand laying in hospital beds and just sitting there and doing nothing. And when you move, you feel alive. And so the first day, and part of it was, I was nervous and anxious. I was just walking around and I asked a nurse sometime, I go, what's the record for walking? Because actually nurses want you to walk and they want you to move. And they go, well, someone, I was 10 years ago, walked a marathon. And so then I put that in my head. I'm like, okay, I can do that. And it took me 11 hours because, I had
you were hooked up to an IV, right?
I was hooked up to an IV. I had to sit down. The nurses made me take breaks. I had to eat. I had to get a nurse to actually recharge my battery, which they normally don't do and get in trouble for. But she was my friend and looked out for me, so she knew that was an important goal to accomplish. And it was really gratifying. And it was hard, especially the last couple hours in the dark, just walking by myself. But it was also very a spiritual, satisfying moment too. I had a lot of reflection time. And it was that same day where actually when the doctors told me that, hey, man, you're doing great. And I felt good. And I knew there were times I wouldn't feel good where I couldn't walk. So it was a combination of things. And, I was just grateful that because some nurses didn't want me to do it, and so I was grateful for they got overruled, and I was able to do that because it was very, very satisfying.
Matt,
go ahead.
Quick question. As you sound great, obviously, and just let the people know, if I'm correct here, like you talked about, you're still taking 40 pills a day, and you're still, and talk to them about your blood right now, and then having to get all your immunizations again, and why that is.
Yeah, so I in the stem cell transplant I had, you have to have a match. You have to have donor stem cells or donor blood, and so and that's not always a gimme. Yeah, so when most people that have a blood cancer leukemia, there's 30% chance that your family might match, and if your family doesn't match, you have to look beyond your family to get a match from Be the Match, which is the national donor database, and that's throughout the whole world. And so the very first thing that happened was when they were explaining all this stuff to me and it was going over my head, I was like, what if I don't get a match? And I was fortunate enough to get a match actually through an umbilical cord. So someone donated their baby's umbilical cord blood, and so I had that in a combination with my sister was a half match. I had my sister donate her stem cells, and I got the stem cells from the umbilical cord, and they became my new blood system. So I have a whole new, saved my life, but I have a whole new blood system. So, my blood type changed. I've noticed my taste buds have changed. I've got to get all the new baby vaccinations if he has a baby, because everything I had doesn't count anymore. And the reason they do that is, they want to take before they insert the new blood or stem cells in you, they want to take all the bad stuff out, which includes even your good cells. So part of the stem cell process is they basically, with intense chemo and radiation, they kill every cell in you and get your blood counts as low as they can possibly be, including the leukemia, and then put the new cells in you, and then hopefully the new cells, graft with your body and start to grow, which mine have, and become your new blood system. And so, and I'm, beyond grateful that my stem cell, and stem cells is another word for bone marrow transplant. They're the same thing.
Okay.
It has gone very well, but there's a recovery process involved because your immune system takes a while to get back to normal, where you can be around other people. So I'm still going through that. I'm taking pills because I'm at risk for a lot of infections, and I have to isolate. But I'm getting my energy back. I'm getting my strength back. It just takes time, but I feel, 100 times better than I did when I was in the hospital, and I can feel getting stronger, just mentally and physically every day.
Matt Lubick joins us. An amazing story. Former Nebraska assistant Matt Lubick. How important is it, Matt, for you to hear from? You've been in a team environment, so I imagine you hear from a lot of coaches and players.
Yeah, it meant the world. It's when you get people that believe in you and give you a pat on the back, and it inspires you, it motivates you, it's when you get some bad news, or things aren't going the way you want to, it's easy to kind of drift in that dark space and think about all the bad things that can happen. But when you hear from your friends and coaches, and the thing about coaching, I've had to go to a lot. It's a transient profession where I've had to go to a lot of different schools, and when this thing came out and people heard about it, I heard from a lot of guys that I felt bad that I've lost touch with, because you go to it's like a military. You go to so many different places, and you kind of get new set of friends here and a new set of friends here, that it's hard to stay in touch with people. And so this has also been a unique opportunity to get connected with coaches that I felt bad I lost touch with. And so, yeah, it meant the world to me having coaches reach out that inspired me and believed in me, and that was a big part of giving me a positive mindset going through this whole thing.
Matt, we talked about something that was so important that you mentioned that saved your life, and Jake has the information here about the match, about how important it is to match, and then you let us know how to do that also. And so Jake's going to be able to comment on that. Could you comment on how important that match is?
I appreciate it. It saved my life, and I didn't know anything about this whole process until I went through it. But it's a relatively easy hassle, and it's pain-free for the donor to go through. I watched my sister go through it firsthand. So basically what it entails is when you decide to be a match, you want to be part of the registry, you have to get your blood tested. And getting your blood test is just a swab to see your genetic makeup. And you swab your mouth. So, and then you send it into the database, and then they basically see if you're a match with someone else that might need transplant. And so when that happens, let's say you're lucky enough to get selected to save someone's life and you're a match, they'll send you some pills that will increase the production of your stem cells, and then you go in and give blood. But it's pain-free. It's really like a blood, giving blood and a blood transfusion. I know when I received the new cells one day, there was no pain whatsoever. There's nothing invasive. I was able to get up and walk a couple miles that day. And then for my sister, again, it was a completely pain-free process. And so I think, it's interesting. I had never been really educated on it and how important it is. The perfect donors are 20 to 40 years old. And, there's a big movement right now where athletes, college football players and every sport, you name it, are donating their stem cells. And we've had great turnouts. I know I had the opportunity to talk to the Kansas football team about doing it, and I think we had pretty much 100% participation. And it's just, it's heartwarming knowing that that maybe, hey, because of something I went through, you might be able to educate somebody else on how they can save a life, and there's nothing more noble than you can do, and it's really easy. And another thing, like in Europe, for example, where a lot of the matches come from, it's kind of expected. It's a code of ethics. Everyone wants to help out their brother. So really everybody in Europe is a donor. I think they've done a great job of education there, and in the States, I think it's just a matter of education. But I think the more people that get educated on how easy it is to actually save someone's life, I think the better outcomes we're going to have.
For those curious, again, you can text "Saved My Life," all one word, "Saved My Life" to 61474, or go to bethematch.org, or call 1-800-MARROW-2. That's 1-800-627-7692.
And we can post that, right?
Oh, yeah, we will post that.
So Matt, we'll post that. The Breakers will take this over. We will. I talked to you about the Breakers, how strong they are. Now, this is a weird question, Matt. Do you do any social media? Because the Breakers and the people listening to this in Nebraska would like to contact you. I'm not going to put your personal cell phone number out on although Steve Sipple has done that by mistake. Is there a way that if people would like to reach out to you, that they can do that without with also not interfering with your day? But there's a lot of people that would love to reach out to you at this time. Is there a way they can do that through Twitter or any sort of social media platform?
Yeah, well, that's a great thing. So I'm kind of in the archive still with the social media, and that's something that's not good. I got to catch up on that. But I'm just starting to redo my Twitter. I still got my Nebraska Twitter, which is kind of embarrassing. And so
I kind of like it. I like that. Respect that.
So I got you, and especially for something like this, because that would be, that'd be a gift to me if people respond to this and are excited about this. That would be definitely something special. That would touch my heart. So let me figure that out. Okay. Maybe you guys can announce it, because I got to figure that out.
That's fine.
That's fine. We'll post
100.
100 like that.
Yeah.
We'll help you out with that.
That incredible story. Obviously, with what you've been through, your storied career, and then how you fought back. What a great situation you have at Nevada. And I can speak for the Nebraskans that Nebraskans will all also be pulling very hard for Nevada and for you, Matt.
Absolutely.
All right.
I'm very grateful for that. One of the best things experience I had in Nebraska was just firsthand seeing the Nebraska faithful and the fan support, which is second to none, and how people love their team and love everything about it. And so, this is a cool opportunity for me to be able to reach out and thank them as well.
He is Matt Lubick, the new OC at Nevada, formerly at Nebraska. And Matt, we will follow you this year. We root for you. Thanks for your time. And again, we'll talk to you hopefully down the road here pretty soon.
Awesome. Look forward to it.